Fed Chairman Jerome Powell just issued a harsh rebuke of Donald Trump. Cue Aretha Franklin singing Respect. Welcome to Occupy Democrats. I'm David Reddish. If you're paying attention, you've probably noticed that earlier this week, Donald Trump pushed the economy off a cliff. And if you're not paying attention, that screeching sound like a bomb falling from the sky about to detonate, that was Trump pushing the economy off a cliff. Now you're informed. Since Trump announced his massive tariffs on Wednesday, the stock market has gone haywire. In the first 24 hours after Trump announced his tariffs, the market lost a staggering $3.1 trillion in wealth. It charted the biggest drop since the COVID lockdowns of 2020, and the Nasdaq charted its biggest drop in history. And that was before today's news made the situation even worse. Take a look.
U.S. stocks are tumbling for the second day. The Dow is already down 1,000 points after dropping almost 1,700 points yesterday. This comes amid President Trump's escalating trade war and despite a stronger than expected new jobs report just out this morning. Also affecting the markets this morning, retaliation from China. Beijing announced it's responding to the White House's sweeping tariffs with 34% new tariffs of its own against the United States. Let's go live right now to New York and CNN business and politics correspondent Vanessa Yurkevich, who's standing by. Vanessa, you're watching all of this. Break it down for us. First of all, start with the jobs report that came out this morning.
Yeah, well, this jobs report, better than expected jobs report, may have softened the opening on Wall Street just a little bit. But look at stocks right now. Look at where markets are really tumbling this morning as investors are pricing in really the worst case scenario, a trade war escalation. They are looking for some sense that the administration is willing to negotiate with countries. That does not seem to be the case. Investors telling me that their trust has been just completely eroded as this trade war escalates. As you mentioned, though, a bright spot, the jobs report, better than expected numbers in March. Hiring picked up 228,000. That's more than 100,000 or about 100,000 more than expected. And the unemployment rate ticking up to about 4.2%, just slightly from 4.1%. But really, as investors are telling me, this is ancient news at this point. This is looking backwards in March. Really, everything changed on April 2nd when President Trump announced these universal tariffs, and Wall Street was waiting for retaliation from major trading partners. And we heard from China just this morning a 34% tariff on all U.S. exports going into China. That's about $143 billion worth of goods every single year. Things like chemicals, computers, agriculture products, which I will note already have previous tariffs on them from 2018 during President Trump's first term, and also retaliatory tariffs that went into place in March. So an escalation on that front. You also see there that's going to impact transportation and oil and gas coming out of the United States. But worth noting, though, that we, the U.S., get a lot more from China than we send them. We get about $438 billion worth of goods every single year. And that now also, because of what President Trump put in place, has a 34% tariff on those goods. Economists agree, Wolf, that those prices, those increase in prices, will likely get passed down to us, the U.S. consumers.
Gloomy days are here again. Thanks, Donald. With Wall Street in a panic, not to mention countless Americans who are seeing their savings and 401k plans wiped out in a matter of minutes, all eyes fell to one man who could soften the blow. This morning, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell delivered remarks in New York. Last month, Powell opted to keep interest rates the same and warned that tariffs could spark a trade war that would drive inflation skyrocketing. This morning, with Trump urging Powell to lower interest rates in celebration of his tariffs, the Fed chairman delivered some ominous remarks. Take a look.
It is not our role to comment on those policies. Rather, we make an assessment of their likely effects, observe the behavior of the economy, and set monetary policy in a way that best achieves our dual mandate goals. We have stressed that it will be very difficult to assess the likely economic effects of higher tariffs until there is greater certainty about the details, such as what will be tariffed, at what level, and for what duration, and the extent of any retaliation from our trading partners. While uncertainty remains elevated, it is now becoming clear that tariff increases will be significantly larger than expected. And the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth. The size and duration of these effects remains uncertain. While tariffs are highly likely to generate at least a temporary rise in inflation, it's also possible that the effects could be more persistent.
Yes, it got worse. To paraphrase, Powell warned that the tariffs will have a dire effect on the economy and that he's unlikely to lower interest rates anytime soon. Oh, and before taking questions, he added this.
And there are also G20 meetings, G7 meetings where the central bankers are there. So we're kind of regularly meeting and talking. And when we're not doing that, we're also texting each other. And
is there a group chat?
I'm not at liberty to say. No.
Sorry, we had to include that as a slight moment of levity. Whatever one thinks of Powell's policies, he isn't the most charismatic man. So it's fun to see him have a sense of humor, in this case, making fun of Pete Hegseth and the Signalgate scandal. For more information on that kerfuffle and recent developments overshadowed by this economic meltdown, check out our other videos here on the channel. Back to Powell. Look, the news here isn't good. Unemployment is up despite adding higher numbers of jobs in March than expected, and that was before this economic chaos. We can only guess how the jobless numbers will look after a few weeks of this. On the other hand, there is still a chance for Congress to act, overriding Trump's tariffs, or better yet, removing the orange wart from Washington's backside once and for all. All Mike Johnson has to do is let Trump's tariff powers come up for a vote in the House. The Senate has already passed a resolution to remove them. And as far as impeachment, that is still a long shot, but given the results of the special elections in Florida and Wisconsin this week, in which Democrats radically overperformed beyond expectation, Republicans at all levels should be very, very worried. So, stay tuned. This is just the beginning. We'll have more on the Trump trade wars, the Trump recession, and any congressional coups as they develop. If you need me, I'll be watching my stock portfolio in real time, and likely hitting the sauce as I do. This is Occupy Democrats.